Welcome to session 6 of LDTC. Today we're talking about recording. So I'm going to take you through the PowerPoint and then we'll split up into groups to do some recordings for the prepared songs or poems or stories, whatever you have. And then we'll regroup and work on inputting them into your composer project. So, what are recordings used for? So these are very important, the major 3 I would say, but there certainly are more uses. Are linguistic analysis, so actually using the language data you have in a recording to look at very linguistic things like we do in the program. The grammar, the syntax, morphology, things like that that most of the participants are just getting an introduction to. They're useful for teaching purposes, especially as we talk more later in the next session or so about revitalization projects. If you're interested in having data to do some small scale things with your language, it's nice to have recorded data to use in developing tools. And then the preservation of important cultural matters, like mythology, folktales, poems, songs, things that we're recording today, just to keep them there in the case that it kind of disappears in the future. Then you have a record of it. So why is it important? The big idea is that recordings can be used to preserve things and they will then be used in the future. So you can have them archived and preserved, and someone will take care of them, make sure that they're always accessible to those who need it. And they can be analyzed in the future because sometimes first analyses aren't right. So you can go back to the original source and reanalyze or make new developments based off of that rather than what someone else has said. So is an audio recording alone enough? No! We need an accompanying transcription, gloss, and free translation, which is what we worked on last session when we were going through and learning the certain interlinear gloss abbreviations and how to go through and do those 3 levels of data. And then without the gloss and the translation, you don't really know what they are necessarily if someone comes across it later, or what you can use it for. So if you don't have those, it quickly becomes kind of a meaningless project to just have all these recordings. And then we also need appropriate metadata so that we can put the recording and the event in a specific context and it's more understandable for us. We have an example here of Ernst's, it's hard to say, of Ernst's recording of his story that he did when he was an LDTC participant. So this is what your pages will look like once we finish them today. So here you can just listen to this story. I don't know if this will work actually. So, it's a sample of the story. So there's a link right here, and it's on his page, so you know that it belongs to him. And then over here, you can see the actual transcription of his data in Hongboy, and then the interlinear gloss, and then a free translation into English, like we were working on last time. So he's broken it down into sentences, and then presented it that way as well, so we know what's actually going on, and we understand the data better that's recorded.
Question.
Yep.
When you're translating it, do we have to translate it word by word, or how it was presented, or?
You do a line of gloss, so you pick out more themes and things, and then you do a free translation, which is just the best translation in English. So you don't have to do word by word. Because reading it, that doesn't necessarily make sense, right?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So, we're doing recordings today, so we need to talk about recording environments and the types of recording environments. So you can't always control where you record, and some situations are less than perfect for doing recordings. But if you can manage to get a really great location for a recording, then it can really improve the recording itself, and it's more accessible and understandable for use. So can you guys think of some factors that make a recording environment bad? Yes. Noise. What types of noise?
Anything. talking or from like slamming of the doors?
Yeah. People talking, background noising, eating and drinking like we're doing here.
Refrigerator.
It's okay, don't worry about it. Refrigerator, fans,
Yeah.
Projectors, you can hear the dull noise of that. That all kind of adds into the recording. Things to watch out for. These all kind of combine and make it a lot fuzzier and your actual speech and the language less clear when you're trying to go back and do analysis of it. So some other things are children and animals. Children are noisy. I think we covered everything else. Table tapping, if you're a table tapper. Crunchy snacks. Fridges, in this case the projector. If you're in other rooms, the fans and things like that. In general, you want to be in an inside location rather than outside, because outside you get wind and all sorts of noises and birds you can't control, stuff like that. So good things are the opposite of these. So a desirable recording environment is indoors, it's quiet. You can close windows to block out the noise. No fans or appliances, no children, and no extra people who might make noises without realizing it or breathe really heavy.
Coughing.
Right, coughing, see someone with a runny nose who just has to blow their nose all the time, don't let them in. So those are the environments we're looking for. And here today we'll be going to specific sound booths that are quiet and are good for recording. So the next thing is actually how you use a digital audio recorder. The ones we're all using today are Zoom 2s maybe, I think. Zoom H2, we have a lovely diagram here. So in an ideal world, yeah, you want to be able to control all of those things and make the perfect environment. But a lot of times that's not possible. So if there are bigger things that you can avoid, like being outside or having children running around or eating things while you do it, they're a lot easier to control and account for. But that's true. Sometimes tables in the services you have the recorder on or the actual lining of the walls can make a difference. Yep. Anything else? Okay. So next we're going to actually look at using recorders. So we have a recorder for all participants today that we get to use, and we're going to play around with them in a few minutes. So a really important thing is to check sound levels on your recorder, because after you do your recording, if you go back and listen and find out it's too soft and you can't hear anything, then your recording is not at all useful. And we don't want that to happen. So what you do to check sound levels is just press the record button once, and then you can test and it'll show the volume raising and lowering as you speak into it. And you want to place the microphone where it will be in an actual recording situation, so you get the closest possible estimate of what it'll be like. Say a few test sentences at normal levels. And then on the side, you can adjust volume buttons. You can press them to adjust the volume until it's as high as possible without going off the end of the scale, because that cuts off part of your data. So we'll practice doing that. So for the test, you press the record button once, but for actual recording, make sure you press it twice, because if you don't, then you don't record. And this has happened. So you just want to be careful and make sure you do a test run and make sure that you're actually recording when you get the two presses. Make sure everything's adjusted and bring extra batteries when you're doing recordings, just in case. So for the next 15 minutes, we're going to give you some recorders, and you can work with your mentor to actually go through, press the buttons, see what all the menu options do, do the test run where you adjust the volume and then record a little bit. Actually, handouts for you guys that I forgot to give you. So there's some instructions on there on making a short clip and listening to it again. And then we'll do that. Just kind of play around with it. Aha, here we go, a checklist. Turn it on, navigate the menu, check all the options of the menu, change the recording format or file format, adjust volume, record a 5-second snippet of background chatter in the room, so I will be sure to talk the whole time so you guys can get some background noise. And then you can go through and listen to it and then delete it, and that way you get more comfortable using the recorder itself. Sure. So we'll stop for 15 minutes, let you guys play around, and then talk about our actual activity for the day. Yeah? Sounds good? Okay.
Okay, this is the Zoom H2. This is one of the main devices we use for recording audio. Now, how to turn on the Zoom H2 is very simple. Power on and off. Just flip that switch on. You see the splash screen here. Take a second to load all the memory card and all that. Okay, now you'll see this screen here. This will show you all the information you need to know to record the audio. To prime the recording, you press the record button once. Now in this form, it's not recording anything, but you can see the levels, the left and the right. And you can see how loud something is. If it's too loud, it'll go way over here and it'll start clipping. So ideally you want the bars to be around this area. So not too far to the right, but over here. Now if it's too soft, you can change the gain here. This is low gain, and you can pump it up to medium gain, and you can get higher levels. This will sacrifice a little bit of audio quality. You can also modify volume on the left side here. And let's pump that all the way up. Okay, so now we got some good volume for my voice. After that, when you want to start recording, you got to press the record button twice. And now we're actually recording something to the device. And to stop recording, you just press the record button once more, and it'll record and save it to a file. There's another thing you might want to see about this is the directions. It will record. So this right now records 90 degrees from the front of the device. So it records from here. Now if you want to record from the back of the device, you just click over twice. Now this will record to the rear, and it'll record a wider angle. So this is good if you want to interview someone behind you. And then there's some other options, but those are the main ones. And I think that should be it.
So today, now that you've played around with the recorders a bit, you're a little more comfortable. Today you're going to record a sample of your own language. So you're going to use the recorder to record the short song, story, or poem, something that is short, so that we have enough time to actually go through and gloss and translate what you have. So do the recording, and then you'll have to listen to it to make sure it actually recorded and it's usable. And then we'll transfer the file to your computer, rename it, and then do the gloss and translation for Composer, so that when you publish your website, you'll have everything there. So to transfer files, there should be a USB cord in your package of things in order to move the file from your recorder to the computer. And then you will move that to your language folder where you're keeping all of your pages in Composer. And then we'll rename the sound file. So we need to talk about some naming conventions. So why are naming conventions important?
So
Alex. Oh, great, that's fine. He was looking right at me, so I picked him. Why are they important?
For organizational purposes.
Yes. That's an acceptable answer.
Language documentation is 80% organization.
That's a big claim.
It is a big one.
We're going to move on.
I'll move down to 75%.
Okay. So proper naming conventions can tell you who, when, and what. Like Alex says, you can also, it's much easier to find your files as well when you have them named the same way. So bad file names are mypoem.mp3, or just the STE-001, which will probably come up on your recorder as you do it. That's not going to help you when you're searching for it on your computer or anything to know what that is, or when you made it, or where you were when you made it, or who actually made it if you got it from someone else, things like that. So what we want to do is be sure to include initials, a date, and some sort of explanation of what the actual recording event was. So we have a few examples here. With SS initials, the date 2012-10-23, and then Frog Story was the actual story. There are a few other variations, But what we're going to use for our recordings today is your last name dot first name, and then the year, month, date, and then the title of your story or song or whatever it may be. And then we'll go into Composer and upload our new template for today, and then we'll actually link the audio to that, and then it'll be usable and accessible on your website when we're finished. And like I said before, you're going to transcribe and gloss the language sample. So we'll need a full transcription of the story in your language, and then a gloss, and then a free translation in English. And if you want to, you can do a free translation into another language that's commonly spoken in the area you're from. If Eka were here, she might want to do Tetun, or she's working on Tetun anyway, isn't she? If Henry were here, he might want to do it in Bahasa Indonesia, because he also speaks that, and that might reach a wider audience. So yeah, that's all for now. All this is listed on your handouts as well, with the steps to actually upload it into Composer. So, next week we'll be doing dictionaries, but are there any questions or comments about the recording today? Awesome. So, if you guys are ready, there are 2 booths reserved, or 3 booths really, reserved for us in more 262. It's a room on the 2nd floor. You can go in there, work with your, what are we called? Mentors, to actually do the recording. Make sure you do a test run, and make sure you do the full recording. And then once you're done, you can come back up here and transfer it to your computer and work on the glossing and everything. And you can be louder in here and talk and whatever, eat more food. But the sound booths are nice for actually recording because it's a great environment like we talked about before. So